Vishnu Hare Krishna.
Uh,
I'll start with the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 18. Maitre Uvacha. Sadhu Prushtam Tvaya Sadho Lokan Sadhav Anugranata Kirtim Vitanvata Loke Atmano Dokshajatmanah.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. Sri Maitreya said, O Vidura, all glory unto you. You have inquired from me of the greatest of all goodness, and thus you have shown your mercy both to the world and to me, because your mind is always absorbed in thoughts of the transcendence.
नैतचित्रं त्वयि शतार् बाधार्य न विर्यजे गृहीतो नन्यभावेन यत्त्वया हरि ईश्वरः.
O Vidura, it is not at all wonderful that you have so accepted the Lord without deviation of thought, for you were born from the semen of Vyasadeva.
माण्डव्यशापात् भगवान् प्रजासंयमनो यमः भ्रातृः क्षेत्रे भुजियाशां जातः सत्यवती सुतात्.
I know that you are now Vidura due to the cursing of Manvedya Muni, and that formerly you were King Yamraj, the great controller of living entities after their death. You were begotten by the son of Satyavati, Vyasaveda, in the kept wife of his brother.
भवान् भगवतो नित्यं समतः सानुगस्यः यस्य ज्ञानोपदेशाय मादिशद् भगवान् व्रजन्.
Your good self is one of the eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whose sake the Lord, while going back to his abode, left instructions with me.
अथ ते भगवलीला योगमायोर रुब्रूहितः विश्वस्थित्य उद्भवार्थान्ता वर्णयाम्य अनुपूर्वशः.
I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the personality of Godhead extends his transcendental potency for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic world as they occur one after another.
भगवानेक आशेदम् अग्र आत्मनानं विभुः आत्मेच्छानुकातव आत्मा नानामत्युपलक्षणः.
The personality of Godhead, the master of all living entities, existed prior to the creation as one without a second. It is by his will only that creation is made possible, and again, everything merges in him. This supreme self symptomized by different names.
सा वा एष तदा दृष्टा नापश्यदृश्यम् एकराट् मेने सन्तम् इवात्मानं सुप्तशक्तिरसुप्तदृक्.
The Lord, the undisputed proprietor of everything, was the only seer. The cosmic manifestation was not present at that time, and thus he felt imperfect without his plenary and separated parts and parcels. The material energy was dormant, whereas the internal potency was manifested.
सा वा एतस्य सन्दृष्टुः शक्तिः सत्सदात्मिकः माया नाम महाभाग ययेदं निर्ममे विभुः.
Mataji, can you move the screen up, please? Thank you. The Lord is the seer, and the external energy which is seen works as both cause and effect in the cosmic manifestation. O greatly fortunate Vidura, this external energy is known as Maya, or illusion, and through her agency only is the entire material manifestation made possible.
कालवृत्त्या तु मायायं गुणमय्यम् अधोक्षजः पुरुषेणात्मभूतेन वीर्यम् अधात वीर्यवान्.
The supreme living being in his feature as the transcendental Purusha incarnation, who is the Lord's plenary expansion, impregnates the material nature of three modes, and thus, by the influence of eternal time, the living entities appear.
ततो भवन्महात्तत्त्वाम् अव्यक्तात् कालचोदितात् विज्ञान आत्मा देहस्थं विश्वं व्यञ्जं तमोनुदः.
Thereafter, influenced by the interactions of eternal time, the supreme sum total of matter called the Mahatattva became manifested. And in this Mahatattva, the unalloyed goodness, the Supreme Lord sowed the seeds of universal manifestation out of his own body.
सोऽप्य अंशगुणकालात्मा भगवद्दृष्टिगोचरः आत्मानं व्यकरोतात्मा विश्वस्यास्य सिसृक्षया.
Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as the reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead, with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification.
महत्तत्त्वाद् विकुर्वनात् अहं तत्त्वं व्यजायत् कार्यकारणकर्तात्मा भूतेन्द्रियमनोमयः वैकारस्तैजासश्च तामसश्चेत्य अहं त्रिधा.
Mahatattva, or the great casual truth, transforms into false ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and the doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross sense, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance.
अहं तत्त्वाद् विकुर्वाणान्मनो वैकाराद् अद्भुत वैकारिकाश्च ये देवा अर्थाभिव्यजनं यतः.
The false ego is transformed into mind by interaction with the mode of goodness. All the demigods who control the phenomenal world are also product of the same principle, namely the interaction of false ego and the mode of goodness.
तैजासीन्द्रियाणैव कर्ममयानि च.
The senses are certainly products of the mode of passion in false ego, and therefore philosophical speculative knowledge and fruitive activities are predominantly products of the mode of passion.
तमसो भूत सूक्ष्मादिर्यतः kham lingam atmanah.
The sky is a product of sound, and sound is the transformation of egoistic ignorance. In other words, the sky is the symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul.
Kalamayansha yogena bhagavad vikshitam nabha nabosu nusrutam sparsham vikurvanam nirmame nilam.
Thereafter, the personality of Godhead glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced.
Anilo vikurvano nabhasoru balanvitah sasarja rupa तन्मन्मात्रं ज्योतिर्लोकस्य लोचनम्.
Thereafter, the extremely powerful air interacting with the sky generated the form of sense perception, and the perception of form transformed into electricity, the light to see the world.
Anile,
Still
are we
34.
doing
No, 34. Till
30?
34. Thank you, Sakshi
Thank you so
Mataji and
much.
Nana
Please
Mataji, for
forgive me for my mistakes.
beautiful
Hare Krishna.
recitation.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shakshi Mataji, Naina Mataji, thank you for your recitation, the Sanskrit and English. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we continue with our reading and discussion of the fifth chapter of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The chapter is entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya, and today we will be reading and discussing text number 33 to 38. So I'll share my screen and then can discuss. First, we'll also say the Mangala Charanam prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadavayam Dati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pascha Dishatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki. Yeah. So today is a continuation of Maitreya's description to Vidura about the process of creation. So Vidura was very eager and keen to hear Krishna Katha from Maitreya. And he expressed how he wants to hear exclusive Krishna Katha in verses 10 to 16. It is described by the Acharyas that Maitreya was not sure what to speak on. Actually, he was sure, because he said previously that Lord Krishna had specifically left these instructions for him to transmit to Vidura. So in one sense, when we read these verses, we should understand it's coming from Krishna. So it would seem that since Krishna had specifically left this subject matter for Maitreya to speak to Vidura, that Krishna wanted Vidura to hear about the process of creation. Specifically, process of creation means the activities of the Purusha avatars of the Lord. Those forms of the Lord, or the Leela performed by the Lord in connection with the material world. Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Shirodakshaya Vishnu. So these descriptions have been going on. And in the early verses, we've seen how the Lord, through his glance, he impregnates the material nature. That material nature is in the form of pradhan. Let me share my screen. I made some slides just to summarize this. Okay. Can you see my screen with the Vishnu, Karanodakshaya Vishnu, Pradhan, and Mahatattva? You can see that?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So this is basically a summary of what Maitreya Muni is describing to Vidura. The Lord impregnates the jivas, the living entities, into material nature, together with kala, time. The time factor is invoked by the Lord. The Lord is beyond time, but he initiates time. And the material nature that the Lord is impregnating the living entities, it is known as pradhan. And the pradhan is sometimes called the undifferentiated or undifferentiated or unmixed state. It's like raw state. And in that state, the three modes of material nature are present, but they are not active. And then from the pradhan, we get the mahatattva manifesting. And the mahatattva, it is explained, is a state where all the three modes is predominantly of goodness is present, but the mahatattva is predominantly the mode of goodness. And to some degree, the mode of passion. And this state, the mahatattva, there's further transformation. And that's for transformation is ahankar, meaning false ego. And this ankara is formally or predominantly in the tamas, ignorance. So Mahatattva is predominantly goodness, sattva gun, whereas ankara is predominantly ignorance. And this state of ahankara, or, you see from it, it produces three energies. What are the three energies? Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. The Jnana Shakti means mode of goodness. We get the sense that we are the doers. And then the Kriya Shakti means cause. We are the cause. And finally, Akarya Shakti is effect. So these three energies, they are derived. And then this Drava Shakti, it has the capacity to produce 5 gross elements. As you see in the diagram there, the 5 tanmatras, 5 elements. And the Kriya Shakti, that produces the 5 senses, and the Jnana Shakti produces the sense devatas. Each devatas, the mind and the 10 sense devatas. So this is generally how the creation is described. So we'll go back to the verses and we'll read them. So I put this out there so when we're reading, we can try to connect with this overall understanding. So let me share my screen. Verse 33 today. So you can see that. Kalamayam sayogena bhagavad vikshitam nabaha nabaso nushritam sparsham vikurva nirmame nilam. Word for word translation: Kala, time. Maya, external energy. Amsa yogena, partly mixed. Bhagavat, the personality of Godhead. Vikshitam, glanced over. Nabaha, the sky. Nabasaha, from the sky. Anushritam, being so contacted. Sparsham, touch. Vikurvat, being transformed. Nirmame, was created. Anilam, the air. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereafter, the personality glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced. Purport: all material creations take place from subtle to gross. The entire universe has developed in that manner. From the sky developed the touch sensation, which is a mixture of eternal time, the external energy, and the glance of the personality of Godhead. The touch sensation developed into the air in the sky. Similarly, all other gross matter also developed from subtle to gross. Sound developed into sky. Touch developed into air. Form developed into fire. And taste developed into water. And smell developed into earth. So I'll share. So this verse 33, we see there is this inverted like sigma, that is made up of three things: the Lord's glance, time, and external energy. So think of the Lord's glance, it's like a power, plus time, plus the external energy. So when sky touches these three elements, for want of a better word, we get the sensation of touch arising. So sky, Lord's glance, time, and external energy, we get touch. And then from touch, we get air. And from air, we have the qualities of touch and sound. So we can have, you can see this, the development, as Prabhupada says, from subtle to gross. So the Lord's glance, time, and the external energy, they are subtle. And when they come in touch with sky, we get touch. And from touch, we get air, which has qualities, touch and sound. And now we move on to the next verse. Anilopi vikurvano nabasoro soru balan vitaha sasarja rupa tanmatram jyoti lokasya lochanam. The word for word, synonyms. Anila, air. Api, also. Vikurvanaha, being transformed. Nabasa, sky. Urubala, anvitaha, extremely powerful. Sasara, created. Rupa, form. Tatmatram, sense perception. Jyoti, electricity. Lokasya, of the world. Lokanam, light to see. Thereafter, the extremely powerful air, interacting with the sky, generated the form of sense perception, and the perception of form transformed into electricity, the light to see the world. Maybe we'll read all the verses and we'll connect them together. Text 35. Anilenan vitam jyotir vikurvat paravikshitam ad atambo rasa mayam kala mayam shayogataha. Synonyms. Anilena, by the air. Anvitam, interacted. Jyoti, electricity. Vikurvat, being transformed. Paravikshitam, being glanced over by the Supreme. Adata, created. Ambarasamayam, water with taste. Kala, of eternal time. Maya amsa, an external energy. Yogataha, by mixture. When electricity was surcharged in the air and was glanced over by the Supreme, at that time, by a mixture of eternal time and external energy, there occurred the creation of water and taste. Text number 36. Jyoti sambo nusham shritam vikurvad brahma vikshitam mahim ganda gunam arat kalamayam sayogataha. Jyotisa, electricity. Ambaha, water. Anushamsrita, thus created. Vikurvat, due to transformation. Brahma, the supreme. Vikshitam, so glanced over. Mahim, the earth. Ganda, smell. Gunam, qualification. Adat was created. Kala, eternal time. Maya, external energy. Amsa, partially. Yogataha, by intermixture. Translation. Thereafter, the water produced from electricity was glanced over by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and mixed with eternal time and external energy. Thus, it was transformed into the earth, which is qualified primarily by smell. Purport. From the descriptions of the physical elements in above verses, it is clear that in all stages the glance of the Supreme is needed, with the other additions and alterations. In every transformation, the last finishing touch is the glance of the Lord, who acts as a painter does when he mixes different colors to transform them into a particular color. When one element mixes with another, the number of its qualities increases. For example, the sky is the cause of air. The sky has only one quality, namely sound. But by the interaction of the sky with the glance of the Lord, mixed with eternal time and the eternal energy, the air is produced, which has two qualities, sound and touch. Similarly, after the air is created, the interaction of sky and air, touched by time, the external energy of the Lord, produces electricity. Next, the interaction of electricity with air and sky, mixed with time, the external energy, and the Lord's glance over them produces water. In the final stage of sky, there is one quality, namely sound. In the air, two qualities, sound and touch. In the electricity, three qualities, namely sound, touch, form. In the water, four qualities, sound, touch, form, and taste. And in the last stage of physical development, the result is air, which has all five qualities, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Although they are different mixtures of different materials, such mixtures do not take place automatically. Just as a mixture of colors does not take place automatically without the touch of the living painter. The automatic system is factually activated by the glancing touch of the Lord. Living consciousness is the final word in all physical changes. This fact is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9:10 as follows. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sa chara charam. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam. Etu nanena konteya jagat vipari vartate. The conclusion is that the physical elements may work very wonderfully to the layman's eyes, but their workings actually take place under the supervision of the Lord. Those who can mark only the changes of the physical elements and cannot perceive the hidden hands of the Lord behind them are certainly less intelligent persons, although they may be advertised as great material scientists. So Srila Prabhupada has given a very nice summary of what is being explained Maitreya Muni to Vidura. Srila Prabhupada is explaining how first we have sky. Sky has only one quality, and that is sound. Then from sky we get air. The air has two qualities, sound and touch. Like you can feel the air. You can't feel the sky, but air you can feel. If air blows across, we can feel it. And then from first there is sky, then air, then is electricity. There's three qualities, namely sound, touch, and form. And from electricity, we have water. I was reading before this class today, how is water formed? Water, you get two molecules of hydrogen and one molecule of oxygen. By themselves, these bonds, they cannot form by themselves into H2O, two hydrogens and one oxygen. They can't just happen by themselves. But the introduction of certain energy, electricity, those natures of the bonds of those molecules change. And by the introduction of this additional energy, we can get the combination of two hydrogens and one oxygen, and you can get water. And it is explained that from the combination of these molecules, we can get heat being formed also. Now, the modern scientists, they can talk about this. They can even read this and say, oh, Vedic knowledge is saying that there is sky. Sky has only one quality, sound. And then from sky, you get air. Air has got sound and touch. And then from there, you get electricity, sound, touch, and then form. And then from electricity, you get water. Water has four qualities, sound, touch, form, and taste. And then from water, the final development stage is earth. And earth has everything. You can smell the earth. So the modern scientists, they can say, yes, this is happening, but it's all happening by physical laws, by the actions of nature. But the devotees of the Lord say no. None of these elements, none of these qualities can be manifest without the intervention of the Lord, the glancing of the Lord, the energy of the Lord. And Prabhupada quotes this verse from Bhagavad Gita, Maya Dakshena Prakriti, Suyate Sacharacharam, Etu Nanena Konteya Jagat Vipari Vartate. That the conclusion is that the physical elements may work very wonderfully to the layman's hands, but the workings actually take place under the supervision of the Lord. Everything is happening only by the Lord. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Adi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That Krishna is the cause of all causes. It is only by the intervention and the power of the Lord that we are getting many wonderful things happening. Without the Lord's presence, nothing will happen. And text number 37. O gentle one. Okay. Bhutanam naba adinam. Yad yad bhavya vara varam. Tesham paru nusham para Anushamshargat Yatasankyam Gunan Vidu. O gentle one, of all the physical elements, beginning from the sky down to earth, all the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ete Deva Kala Vishnu, Kala Mayamsa Lingini Lingi Naha. Nanatvat Swa Kriya Nishaha Prochu Prajanala Pranjalayo Vibhum. The controlling deities of all of the above-mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcels. Because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties, and were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as follows. So from this verse onwards, we see that all of the description of the elements, there are controlling deities for everything. Everything has a controlling deity. The air has a controlling deity, Vayu. Water has a controlling deity, Varuda. So everything has a controlling deity. And these controlling deities, their power to control is given to them by the Lord. They are empowered expansions. So Prabhupada says in the purport, the conception of various controlling demigods who inhabit the higher planetary systems for the management of universal affairs is not imaginary, as proposed by persons with a poor fund of knowledge. So we hear there are 33 million demigods. That's what we hear from the Vedic scriptures. And there are so many demigods, 33 million, because everyone has a duty to control a certain aspect of the Lord's material nature. Prabhupada says the demigods are expanded parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and they are embodied by time, eternal energy, and partial consciousness of the Supreme. Human beings, animals, birds, etc. are also parts and parcels of the Lord and have different material bodies, but they are not the controlling deities of material affairs. They are, rather, controlled by such demigods. Such control is not superfluous. It is as necessary as the controlling departments in the affairs of modern state. That's very important what Srila Prabhupada is saying here. We should think that, this is something very, very minor. There are 33 million demigods. Everyone has some controlling power. Prabhupada said, don't take it very lightly. Just like in a material state, there is Minister of Finance, Minister of Environment, Minister of Health, and so on. If these ministers were not there, say like, for example, there was no Minister of Health, every day so many critical decisions have to be made about the healthcare system. Every day, so many decisions have to be made about the financing of the healthcare system. If there was no health minister, there would be chaos in the health system because everything would be in limbo. Nothing would move forward. There'll be no decisions taking place. Same goes for all of the other departments. Like recently, the president of France, Michel Barnier, he was kicked out of position. And immediately there was so much panic, that how the country is going to be running now. Quickly, very quickly, President Macron, he had to put in someone else to act in that capacity. So in the same way, the whole creation of the Lord is very, very well organized. Everyone has demigods. They have big responsibilities and they are given or empowered by the Lord. They are acting on behalf of the Lord. So we should not think that everything is just happening by chance. There is a very, very big organization in material affairs among the controlling deities. And Prabhupada says, the demigods should not be despised by the controlled living beings. Just like we should never despise the Minister of Health, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Environment. We should never despise, because they are put into such position with responsibilities. And Prabhupada says that these demigods, they're all great devotees of the Lord, entrusted to execute certain functions of universal affairs. One may be angry with Yamaraj for his thankless task of punishing sinful souls. But Yamaraj is one of the authorized devotees of the Lord, and so are all the other demigods. A devotee of the Lord is never controlled by such deputed demigods who function as assistants of the Lord, but he shows them all respects on account of the responsible positions to which they have been appointed by the Lord. At the same time, a devotee of the Lord does not foolishly mistake them to be the Supreme Lord. Only foolish persons accept the demigods as being on the same level as Vishnu. Actually, they are all appointed as servants of Vishnu. So Prabhupada is bringing here the perspective of the devotee in all of these arrangements. The first point Prabhupada makes is that the devotee is never envious with any of these demigods. Second point Prabhupada makes, a devotee is never angry. For example, Yamaraj, because he is authorized and is acting on behalf of the Lord. The third thing Prabhupada makes, that the devotee sees that they are all appointed by the Lord and controlled by the Lord. The devotee never ever makes the mistake of foolishly considering any of the demigods to be the Supreme Lord. One may say, well, the residents of Vrindavan, the highest devotees of Krishna, they wanted to worship Indra. But we should know that that wasn't the case. They were simply thinking that they need to give respect for the rain. And the moment Krishna convinced them or explained to them that they do not need to know Indra, they immediately gave it up. And the fact that they could give it up so easily means they had no attachment to this concept of Indra having any particular power. Immediately, as instructed by Krishna, they gave it up. And one can only give something up very easily if one has no attachment to it. If one has attachment to any concept or any understanding, if we are asked to give it up, it's a bit of a struggle. It's difficult. But the Vrajavasis, they gave it up very easily, very spontaneously, because they had that love for Krishna. Anyone who places the Lord and the demigods on the same level is called a Pashanti or atheist. The demigods are worshipped by persons who are more or less adherents of the processes of jnana, yoga, and karma, the impersonalists, meditators, and fruit workers. The devotees, however, worship only the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This worship is not for any material benefit, as desired by the materialists. even up to the salvation as mystics and fruit of workers. Devotees worship the Supreme Lord to attain unalloyed devotion to the Lord. The Lord, however, is not worshipped by others who have no program for attaining love of God, which is the essential aim of human life. Persons averse to a loving relationship with God are more or less condemned by their own actions. So the main point here is Prabhupada is saying that people who worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead and they consider demigods to be on the same level, they are called atheists. Now someone may say, no, how can you call them atheists? They are worshipping the demigods. An atheist is someone that does not accept the supreme position of the Lord, that the Lord is the ultimate controller and everyone else is controlled. That is an atheist. So if there's a living entity who considers the Lord and the demigods to be on the same level, means that they are not recognizing the superior and topmost position of the Lord. So in that case, they are same like the atheists, because the atheist cannot accept the supreme position of the Lord. And if a demigod worshipper cannot accept that the Lord is superior to the demigod, that's why they considered atheists. The Lord is equal to every living entity, just like the flowing Ganges. The Ganges water is meant for the purification of everyone. Yet the trees on the banks of the Ganges have different values. A mango tree on the bank of the Ganges drinks the water, and the Nimba tree also drinks the same water. But the fruits of both trees are different. One is celestially sweet and the other is helishly bitter. The condemned bitterness of the Nimbu is due to its own past work, just as the sweetness of the mango is also due to its own karma. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 16:19, Tanaham Dvishataha Kruran Samsareshu Naradamam Shipami Ajashram Ashubhan Ashurishu Eva Yonishu. The envious, the mischievous, the lowest of mankind, these do not ever put back. These do I ever put back into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life. Demigods like Yamaraj and other controllers are there for the unwanted conditioned soul. Souls always engage in threatening the quality of the kingdom of God. Since all the demigods are confidential devotee servitors of the Lord, they are never to be condemned. So Prabhupada is making some interesting point that the Lord is equal to every living entity, just like the flowing Ganges. The Ganges gives water to the mango tree, gives it to the bitter lemon tree. But they are both different according to their karma. So the Lord is giving different positions. Some position of demigod, some position of ordinary living entity, some position of animal, due to the karma of the living entities. Okay, I think 38 was the last verse we had to cover. I've been rambling on. I hope you'll not fallen asleep. You'll manage to follow. I'll put this slide on. You can just see a summary of what we discussed. But the main thing is, from all of these verses, is that there is nothing beyond the Supreme Lord. Everything is happening by the will and the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions, comments, or reflections? I hope I've not been talking to myself. Oh, the devotees are still there. Hare Krishna. Did y'all catch that, devotees? Did it make sense?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Sundari.
Please accept my humble obeisances, O Lord Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji, for wonderful class. Yeah, we understood. It was really nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Well prepared, made all the charts, and the demonstration was really good. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. When I was reading this, what I found very interesting, and we should pray for this, that all of the great devotees in in Canto 2, I think it's chapter 4, very similar questions was asked by Parikshit Maharaj. And he was so keen to hear about the Purusha avatars and the activities of the Lord. Here we see that Vidura is in the same mold. Maitreya is very eager to speak about it, and Vidura is very eager to hear about it. And to top it all, Lord Krishna, he left his instructions for Vidura. And just see what instructions he left. It carries lots of importance, and we should never ever fall in the trap of thinking that this is less important, it's less relishable to hear, because it's not.
Yeah.
It is very important. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments, reflections? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patient listening. Hare Krishna. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Panchakalpatarubhyascha. Kripasinduvyeva Patitanam
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Ananta Kori
Thank you.
Vaishnavrinda
Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you, Prabhuji, for a wonderful class. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhu.
you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice class.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.